This is where the future generation of magas is taking us to. Honestly. Guys, did you see this clip? If you have seen this clip that you're about to watch on this channel before, let me know in the comment section. And what was your first impression? Because this is the future generation of magas. No, not only the future, the present, the past, and then the future. Let it make sense to me that the only thing you can tell your people as someone that is standing as a representative is to tell them that if they cannot afford to live in the country that they are birthed into, in the country that they are citizens, in the country that they reside, right from the day one generation of their life, you are telling them that if they cannot afford to live, they can move to another country. Which country? That is the question. Which country are they moving to? Because, in fact, I have a lot to say after this video. Ben Shapiro, what is happening? Welcome to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you have not subscribed in your whole entire life that you have been seeing my videos, hit on that subscribe button and let's dive into what our honorable have to tell us as citizens of America.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you.
We don't care.
Ben Shapiro has the most punchable face of anyone I think I've ever seen on the internet. But to make the assertion that if you can't afford to live where you're from in America as a young person, you should move is literally ridiculous. Housing costs have increased by 290% in America in the last 30 years. That is not okay. And you know how much salaries have increased roughly in that same time period? 30%. So how can someone afford a house that is overpriced when their salaries haven't increased, Ben? But you know what's been up in this country? Productivity. Because you know why? America is a capitalist cog that abuses and takes advantage of our worker bee society and culture that says work, 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 work. You'll find the American dream, when all that was doing was benefiting corporations. So now we have a whole generation of people, starting with my generation, which are millennials and younger, who are realizing, oh shit, I can't really afford to live where I want to live. Let's take me for an example. I'm from New York, and for me to buy something in New York, I would need to quadruple my income. And when I'm buying something, I'm not buying the brownstone that I want. I'm not buying the apartment that I want. I'm buying a one-bedroom apartment for $1.2 million. So yes, Ben, you tell me how we should just pick up and move. Because where am I moving to? Missouri? You make no fucking sense. People like this who are born with privilege, always have had privilege, and think others people's problems aren't real, is the problem with people having podcast mics. Because the majority of the country, Ben, cannot afford to live where they're from. Kick rocks, loser.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunity.
I can't wait until the skyline is lit by the flames of revolution. Did Ben Shapiro just tell Americans that if you can't afford to live in your country, then maybe you should go somewhere else? What I think is funny about Ben Shapiro is he's managed in a short amount of time to lose well, he never really had the left, but he's managed to make the left hate him, and it's slowly becoming to the point where even the right doesn't like Ben Shapiro anymore. Like, they're starting to feel, I guess they're waking up, they're starting to feel a little disrespected by him. They feel patronized and preached to him, continuously saying that's anti this anti that. But isn't Ben Shapiro the one who always used to say facts don't care about your feelings? The only reason I didn't say the word because they will flag this video, but Ben Shapiro is the same guy who coined the term facts don't care about your feelings. But any criticism of him and his kind, it's, oh, you hate us. Weren't you making fun of black people for years for saying, hey, that's a dog whistle, hey, that's racist what you're doing, hey, what you're doing is covert, right? Like, all of that, he will always say facts don't care about your feelings. And then his audience, who heard him say that for years, have him start saying, oh, what you're doing is anti this, anti that, you hate my people. His audience is like, wait, you're the same guy who told us not to care about that stuff, but now you're doing it to us. So he's lost the right. We never had the left, but he has the left not like him. He's telling Americans that if you can't afford to be here, leave. At what point, I'm trying to find my words, so like I'm trying to choose the right words. At what point do Americans get angry enough, left and right, and they're just like, stop looking at each other and let's follow after the ancestors and throw some tea into the harbor? Like, I'm tired of seeing marches where it's like a choreographed, like, little march through downtown for a couple hours, and they're like, I don't like that, and we wave our rainbow flags and or whatever. And then if the riot happens in your own neighborhood, when are we going? I'm not advocating for any type of violence or any type of destruction of property by any means. But if that was the case, why do it there? Why not go somewhere where it would make sense? Like, where they are. You know what I mean? Where they are. I don't know.
Ben Shapiro has a message for all of the Americans who are struggling to survive right now. If you can't afford to live here, simply get out of the country. He doesn't mention fixing wages, lowering costs, or making life better for working families. He just wants us to leave the country. Take a look.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that.
So that's what they think about blue-collar Americans, the very people who build this country, power the economy, and keep everything running. This is the mentality of an elite bubble that has never struggled to pay rent or never had to work overtime just to stay afloat. Millions of families in this country are struggling right now, and it's not because they're lazy. It's because the economy has been rigged against workers for decades now, while the wealthy cash in at record levels. Let's talk about what actually matters. Wealth inequality in this country is the worst it's been since the Gilded Age. The billionaires have never been richer, and corporate profits are at record highs. Meanwhile, wages for working class Americans have barely budged in decades. And what has Trump done to fix all of this? Well, of course, hand out massive tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. Now inflation is on the rise yet again because of his ridiculous policies and incompetence, squeezing working families even more. But instead of addressing any of that or holding the billionaires accountable, their message is leave if you don't like it.
Ben Shapiro still does not get it. A clip of him from one of his most recent shows is going viral. And in that clip, of course, he's mad that Zohran Mamdani won the election in New York. And he's even more upset that young people voted for him. And he's complaining about it. He's crying about it. And in the clip, he's basically saying, if you voted for him based on affordability, maybe you shouldn't live in New York. In other words, he's saying young people shouldn't live in cities. Ben Shapiro still thinks he's relevant. It's the biggest issue about him. Thank God he's not, but he thinks he is. For a lot of conservative young men, I'll be the first to admit it, Ben Shapiro was a gateway drug. In 8th grade, I was watching Ben Shapiro videos. That's what pulled me into being a quote-unquote conservative. But as I grew up, I realized how fake it is, how disgusting his politics actually are. Because Ben's politics preach elites versus everyone else while pretending that capitalism can just run wild and corporations go unchecked and greed go unchecked. That's exactly what destroyed American culture, the middle class, and the nuclear family he claims to defend. So when Ben says young people shouldn't live in cities, my question is very simple. Who are cities for then? Because they're not for retired folks. They're not for families raising kids. Cities are for young people, hustling, contributing, trying to make it out. Telling us that we don't belong in cities because we care about affordability, that's not conservatism at all. That's what we call elitism. That's elitist. They're saying, if you can't afford it, get out. That's what I mean when I say the old small government conservatism is dying. That movement is dying. When young people call themselves conservative now, they don't mean Ben Shapiro's conservatism. They mean right-wing populism, which is about the working class, which is about being anti-corporate and pro-culture. We want checks on big tech. We want a government strong enough to protect us and not protecting corporations. We want a system that doesn't turn us into permanent renters, debt slaves, and cultural bystanders. Ben Shapiro's model doesn't work anymore. He's outdated. His ideas represent nothing. He doesn't represent the new generation of conservatism. And the sooner he realizes it, the better. Because no one's going to start listening to him anymore. And he's only doing damage to the party and to the side that he so claims to be a defender of. He's the old way, and we won't stand for it anymore. Our generation's fed up with it. We want affordability, and the sooner you see that, the more successful the conservatives will be. If you don't do anything about it, Zohran Mamdani and his type keep winning elections.
Ben Shapiro said during an interview, he said that if you can't afford to live somewhere, then you should move. More specifically, he said if you can't afford anymore to live in your hometown because of rising costs, which is kind of something that I understand, then you should move. You should get out of there. You should not be there anymore. Okay? And he emphasizes by saying that you are not entitled to stay there. Like, people are not entitled to stay in the towns they grew up or whatever because of rising costs. Instead of addressing the rising costs in housing and how unaffordable everything is, especially when it comes to the housing market, instead of addressing that and making houses cheaper for the next generation, because right now I believe the average of home ownership is around 50. Instead of doing that, he's like, no, just move somewhere else. Move it. Like you can easily just move and pick up a move, right? Move somewhere else, move to a different place, leave your family, ancestral lands behind. Like, the place that you started, you should just leave it if you can't afford to be there.
Ben Shapiro is now forcing all citizens out of New York that cannot afford their rents. If you're a young person and you cannot afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. He says to the natives of New York, you do not deserve to live where you grew up. Whatever this is, I am not that. He's against Zohran Mamdani, which everybody already knows. He's basically using this to say that his brand of conservatism is dying fast. Just the Judeo-Christianity values. That's what he stands for. So it's like Christian with Jewish values. Why the populist left will steamroller any Republican patriot parroting Shapiro's views. Yeah, I mean, I guess so to an extent. Meanwhile, if Jews are poor in Israel, he'll demand another $6 billion in foreign aid to be sent immediately. LOL, Ben Shapiro always downplaying the significance of someone's birthright to a piece of land that is too ironic for me. Yeah, guys, what do y'all think about this? I mean, everybody already knows he lost all of his aura a long time ago. So let me know what y'all think about this in the comments.
The age of Ben Shapiro is finally coming to an end. His most recent statement essentially saying that you don't deserve to live where you want to live is probably the final straw in everyone realizing that he's not a right-wing conservative person. Ben Shapiro has been and always will be is a capitalistic shill, but not the type of capitalism that you like. It's a type of capitalism that has no value on humanity whatsoever. It's a type of capitalism that views America as an economy and not a country. It's the type of capitalism that essentially views the human as an economic unit and nothing else. And his statement sums it up, because why should you have the right to stay near your family, stay where you grew up, stay where you are attached to? The irony is that the only other ideology that makes the human simply a mean of production and economic unit is communism. And that's why over time, Ben Shapiro is being pushed further and further away from the Republican Party and brand.
Did you guys see this clown, Ben Shapiro, on his latest podcast? This dude, he had the audacity to say that for young people, if you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should move. The idea that you're supposed to live where you're born at is irrelevant. If you can't afford to live in America, then you should move to Mexico, Nigeria, Venezuela, a different country because our politicians and government don't want to make America better for regular citizens. They want to make it great for the rich and the elite, but for the rest of us, move. That's what he just told us. If you're a young person and you're listening to this clown, you literally are about to play yourself, because we all know who he represents, what he represents, and everyone's scared of Muslims taking this country over. I would literally think hard about who's really trying to take this country over. The fact that that shit even came out of his mouth is fucking crazy to me. My dad served in the military. I have friends whose parents served in the military who risked their lives to be in America. And you have the audacity to fucking tell me to move because I can't afford it? Because we have corrupt politicians and politicians selling out to foreign interests in foreign countries? We got to do better. We need to wake the fuck up.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities. If you're
Oh yeah, bro, like absolutely. The problem with this is that you look at why the opportunities don't exist. The opportunities don't exist because in a lot of these companies, especially tech companies, they're using H-1B visas in order to get employees. They're importing these people that will work longer because they can take advantage of them and manipulate them and use them as indentured servants. You have somebody here, I mean, I don't know how Ben Shapiro grew up or anything like that, but
grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But
you do deserve to live there. This is the reason, by the way, why everybody hates him. And then this is even, oh, here we go.
However, when President Trump speaks for the American people more generally, and he says, guys, don't we have better things to do? You can understand his irritation. The man is trying to negotiate an end to a war in the Gaza Strip, an end to a war in Ukraine. And on a list of American priorities, the Epstein-Maxwell case comes in pretty close to zero.
First place. Here's why. It's collateral. If you have access to that information, you can weaponize it. If the Epstein files are even 10% as damaging as what people think they are, they will be able to be weaponized as effectively blackmail on all of these people. And I think that, again, like him saying this stuff's just extremely problematic. And I think for a lot of people, this is the way that they feel about it.
Let's listen to our favorite American Zionist, Ben Shapiro, and his message to all of America.
A young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you...
Let me get this straight. As an American, you do not have the right, you're not entitled to live in your own country, in your own city, where you were born. You're not entitled to live a life where things are affordable, where you can actually live a dignified life. Meanwhile, Ben Shapiro, while he says this to Americans, he believes that every single Jewish person on earth is entitled to the land of Palestine. People who have never stepped foot in Palestine, were never born in Palestine, but are Jewish, are entitled to their birthright of Palestine and to be subsidized by the government, which is subsidized by the United States of America. He believes that the apartheid genocidal state of Israel needs to be funded and subsidized by the U.S. government. The U.S. government is supposed to be funding Israel, giving them hundreds of billions of dollars, keeping them safe, doing whatever Israel wants, and completely ignoring American citizens who can barely afford any medical care, education, affordable living, groceries, etc. In other words, Ben Shapiro is saying, as an American, you are not entitled to live a dignified life in the United States of America, but as a foreign entity, Israel, they are entitled to all of your money, all of your tax-paying dollars, and the Israeli settler colony is entitled to all of the above, but American citizens who are paying for it are not.
My takeaway from Candace Owens Live, Ben Shapiro is not picking up any mic. I know a lot of people were wondering who she was talking about. She was talking about Ben Shapiro, and she basically said, if you try, I will release all the information I have related to communications. that he basically is not the guy for the job. And I'm glad she did it. It also reminded me that a few days prior to Charlie Kirk being assassinated, he was on the Breakfast Club. And a lot of people praised him during his time being interviewed there by Charlemagne, as well as the other host, Lauren. Ben Shapiro went there a few days prior to Charlie Kirk's assassination to talk about war as well as abortion. Well, the concern that I have is you're talking about two individuals who don't really care about what Ben Shapiro thinks. Their thoughts and are basically fixed on the decision. You cannot sway them. So what was the point of being there? To persuade their audience, which is very much minority based. Nonetheless, I appreciate today Candace Owens shutting it down because it was less than 24 hours from when Charlie Kirk had passed that Ben Shapiro basically made it seem like him and Charlie Kirk were really good friends and he was doing something to honor Charlie Kirk. It's not his organization. So Candace did the right thing to maintain integrity of it until his wife Erica made those difficult decisions. But it was definitely not Ben Shapiro's or anyone else's place to say, now I'm going to fill the gap for an organization that isn't theirs.
I hate to be mean to poor Ben Shapiro, who's clearly going away as a media force. But this does reflect the worldview of an awful lot of people in Washington and a lot of people in Ben Shapiro's world. And that worldview is the people of this country don't really matter. They can be replaced. And by the way, if you complain about the fact they're being replaced, which they are at high speed, it's measurable, then you're a Nazi and you must shut up and be punished. But those people don't really matter. They should do what they're told. And ultimately, they should just serve the people who are profiting from all of this. Does he really think that? Here's Ben Shapiro.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that.
They're not entitled to live where they want. They'll live where BlackRock tells them they can live.
It's like, whoa.
He said if you cannot afford to live, you move. That American has gotten to that particular stage where you don't literally need to say that, yeah, this place that you are born is where you are going to do everything and achieve everything. This is coming from someone that a lot of people are seeing as superior. That's quite a shame. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a shame. Like, that is a shame coming from the mouth of Ben Shapiro. And it has gotten to that point that even his own fellow white folks, in fact, even MAGAs right now, they no longer vibe with him the way they vibe with him before. They are restraining or retracting a lot of things from Ben Shapiro. Because let it make sense to me that you just sat down, crafted what you... Because you cannot convince me that these people don't read scripts before coming on a podcast. They do read scripts before coming on a podcast. They will read, and this is what you are supposed to say. Don't go and say otherwise. But the moment they come on this podcast, they just say anything they want to say because they are not questionable. Oh, American is good for you as Ben Shapiro and your family members and every other stuff because you're born with a silver spoon to live there because you can afford it. But it is not good for some people that cannot afford it to live there. They should not live to another place. Live to where, please? Are you going to give them the money for accommodation, the money for relocation? Because let's even consider the fact that, okay, maybe a lot of persons are even tired of staying in America right now, and they are even considering or optioning for relocation. Where is the money going to come from? Are you going to fund them? Are you going to fund them, Ben Shapiro? You're not going to fund them. But you just decide that, yes, if you think that is not okay for you, blah, 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 you can just leave. You just wake up and the only thing you can just say on this podcast is this rubbish. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sorry if you're Ben Shapiro's fan. I've never been his fan from day one because literally most of the things he said, I don't really buy into his ideas. And for someone like me, if I really do not vibe with what you are doing, I just go my separate ways so that I don't have to create commotion for you. This is not the employment opportunities you guys are supposed to be providing. A lot of people are jobless. A lot of people need something to do. A lot of people have literally been crying on how they can survive. Sorry, something is on my phone. That is the stage where a lot of people are. They are not in the stage where you need to start telling them that the solution you are giving them, the solution that you want to put in their hands is they can leave. It's not funny. A lot of people might think it's funny, probably because I started this video laughing. But if you critically look into what Ben Shapiro said, it's not funny. It's trying to make it look like the people that literally do not have should be oppressed. Oppressing them indirectly, as far as I'm concerned. Because let it make sense to me that rent is skyrocketing. Groceries are skyrocketing. People can literally not even afford beef now, which is one of the simplest things that a lot of people do afford. People cannot even eat eggs in their home right now because their prices are ridiculous. You go to grocery shopping, you see $14, $15 to even 20 something dollars on things that you normally buy $6, $7 or even less than that. And now, the other thing that is helping, which is a SNAP benefit, EBTs, because you people think that people that look like me are people that are really enjoying it, or people that are really into it, or people that are really taking the mass opportunity about it, you people have decided to shift it out. Still, it is still affecting your folks. Now, you don't come into a podcast to give solution on, okay, let's do this. All of these things are going high. Things are being taken away. And salary remains stagnant. Salary is not being increased, not even with a 0.05 cents. So how do you expect these people to cope? How do you expect them to live? How do you expect them to survive? How do you expect them to always come out here and clap? Oh yeah, you're doing well. The orange man is doing well. You people are doing well. Keep it up. The rights are. How do you expect them to applaud you? If not the help of social media right now that is saving a whole lot of people, I can tell you for a fact that if this is a period where there is no social media era, a lot of people would have been seeing hell. They would have been seeing hell. But the only thing the Honorable Ben Shapiro will say is you can go out. Anything you wish people that look like me will still come back to you, as far as I'm concerned. Anything you wish them, it will come back to you, because at the end of the day, you people keep blaming it on Democrats. Why the problem is from your own house, it's from the inner house. Fix yourself. Look out for solution. Don't come here and tell people to live where they are used to. Don't deny them their rights. These people are not just immigrants. Americans are not immigrants that you can just throw them off balance and move them to another country. Credit belongs to original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe, like this video, drop me your comment, and lastly, do not forget to share for every other person to get this good news. And guys, with that being said, with no further ado, I'm going to be Simba, and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys. Ben Shapiro, you have to do well.